So, CEO of the Year is our final award of the evening. It is presented to the top 50 CEO who, in the opinion of the judges, is truly exceptional across all judging categories. That includes corporate growth, industry leadership, and community involvement. Le gagné cette année est très remarquable, en mentor actif aidant au moins 15 individus par année, en bénévolat dévoué avec habitants pour l'humanité, un avocat pour la santé mentale. From the humblest of beginnings, selling bait to local fishermen, to launching a log cabin business as a teenager, to leaving home with nothing but a hockey bag full of clothes and a head full of dreams. Aujourd'hui, cet individu est l'un des PDG les plus célèbres au Canada. 2018 saw this person named Innovator of the Year for Growth 500, as well as Canada's Most Admired CEO and RBC's Female Entrepreneur of the Year. Nous sommes fiers d'annoncer Atlantic Business Magazine's 2019 CEO of the Year is from Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, the ultimate blue-collar champion, Mandy Rennehan.
Well, how do you like them goddamn lobsters? Woo! Yeah! So here's the deal, Harry, wherever the hell you are right now. There's two type of hosts. Mert Crick that's got enough mouth for 3 sets of teeth. And you, my friend, drier than a popcorn fart in the middle of the Sahara Desert in a windstorm. That was a compliment, and don't you think it wasn't? The reason why I'm so excited to win this award tonight is because I'm home. You are my people, and I couldn't be more proud to sit in this room and be with you here tonight. What you will see in the small time that I take this stage is I like to use sentence-enhancing words. Because let's be clear, Mother Nature has crawled up our ass, and how much time do we have left? What I really want to say before Don and I start going at each other is that I sit on panels all the time with the biggest innovators in Canada and the US. They invite this little chubby bear to Washington to sit on NAFTA panels. Yes, they do. This is a true story. And here I am, the penguin in between 100 giraffes every time. But who the fuck doesn't love a penguin? Yeah! Don't be shy, Newfies. You know you love it. But I want to tell you a little story about all the innovation. And I want to tell you that not only am I Mandy Rennehan, known as the Blue Collar CEO in North America, I'm redefining the collar blue, and I'm changing the goddamn answer to what do you want to be when you grow up? Because we have a systemic trade shortage in Canada and North America as a whole. And our buddy, the Brits, brought something back to the East Coast first, and it was called a class system. And that class system took all the people that have built our infrastructure, built our industries, and treated them like second-class citizens because they weren't academics. And all the smart kids go to university, and the dumb kids go to community college. Isn't that right, Don? Don't make me come over there and slap you. Fix my hair for that. I want to recognize a person in this room. I built these companies based on a love bigger than myself. And when they say that I left home with a dirty hockey bag full of everything I had in it, a little bit of a personality, a lot of ambition, and then on top of it, I looked over at my boyfriend at the time and I was like, if you're it, I'm going to shoot myself. So on top of it, I was gay 24 years ago. What a goddamn resume. Now stop it, I only got so much time. I want to recognize a person in this room was like what an angel investor is. They give because they want to. There's a person in this room that was someone who I idolized my whole life. I followed around my whole life. A person that had no idea who he had made. A person that looked at me about 5 years ago, of course, over a cold alcoholic beverage, and said, Mandy, thank you for becoming what you are. And I looked at him and I said, why are you getting emotional? We're trying to have a beer. And he said to me, I was a lobster fisherman for almost 40 years. And nobody, until you became my daughter, called me sir. Nobody ever held the door open for me. And nobody called me Mr. Rennehan. This man in Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, one of the biggest lobster fishing industries in Canada, was a legend to all the young men out there who wanted to go lobster fishing. But to his peers, he was a hired man. I am bridging the gap between the white hierarchy asses of this country and the brutally amazing blue-collar people that without them, we'd have nothing. We'd have no clothes, we'd have no shelter, we'd have no lobsters, we'd have no boats, we would have no water, we would have nothing. My father struggled day in and day out to put food on our table. And I watched him every day get up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I watched him strategically start his truck, let a fart, put on the... I looked at the AI guy and I said, you will never meet an algorithm like my old man. And he keeps saying to me now that he works for me, basically doing nothing, and I buy him trucks and he makes our property amazing. He looks at me and he says, "Dear, nobody ever sees the little things I do." Well, tonight I would like this crowd to know that I'm not an app. I'm not a Fortune 500 commodity that you drill out of the earth. I am a goddamn powerhouse that Gary Mitchell Rennehan made, and I would like for him to please stand up. Woo! Stand up! You know, he really is my hero, and he's an absolute pain in the ass. He was so buzzed up here tonight, we had to stop him. But here's the thing. I also have a table back there of 3 craftsmen, actually 4. One is my partner, and I started a company, we're going to get into that later, with a handsome, tall dude from the United States who's seen a creative mogul lesbian in Yarmouth. Together we became RennDuPrat, and they call us the Renaissance Odd Couple. We started a company, a design fabrication company that designs heirloom furniture that you don't see anywhere else in the world right now. And I picked the poorest part of Yarmouth to do it, just to shove it up to every goddamn condescending piece of shit that wanted to tell me I couldn't do it. Right now, my table down there, including my pain in the ass father, all wore blue, stunning tuxes to this event tonight because they are the true craftsmen and people of today. And they are building things that you cannot get through globalization. The shit that falls apart. We're giving you stuff that you can be proud of, that you can take a loan out of, that you can pay interest on and still live and leave for centuries. I would like for you, please, to give a round of applause for the blue collar industry and my tux team of sexy, sexy craftspeople sitting at my table. All right, Don and I are going to fight now. Get ready, because it's just started. Do I sit on your lap?
So this is the year Mark Rich is going to be so sad he missed out on this. So we're going to have a little chat up here on stage, although I'm not sure there's much left to talk about.
There's always stuff to talk about.
So we're gonna get some chairs together. Just give us a second.
Okay.
We're strong too.
Huh? I know you were.
And we're back. Hello, Mandy.
Hi, sweetie. Woo! Why doesn't this start at 3 so we can all be drunk until 11?
So I don't know whether to be really excited here or really scared. But I'm going to start this little interview in a somewhat different fashion. I'm going to start off with a story, and I'm going to get you to finish it. So Mandy's from Yarmouth. I'm from Newfoundland. So a Newfoundlander and a stapler walks into a boardroom in L.A. Take it from there.
It was San Francisco.
It was sorry.
So here's where it goes. When I was 23, I was invited to Toronto. I'd started my business in Halifax at 19. To make a fat story thin, they thought I was kind of special up there. They think they regret it sometimes now. Anyway, they called me and they said, Mandy, we want to take you to San Francisco and we want you to negotiate a deal to take over all of Canada. And I was like, wow. And so what do you do when you don't know what to do with yourself? You call your goddamn Newfoundland friend. So I called and I said, Carm, holy shit, they want me to fly to San Francisco. I had never been to the West Coast. I'd never even eaten a garden salad at that point. And so all of a sudden I heard all this shh in the background. I said, holy shit, boy, what are you doing? She says, Jesus, I'm packing my bags. I'm going to be your secretary. So here me and my Placentia Bay secretary get on a plane. And before we stop there, she says, now, Mandy, you got to look respectable. And I thought, well, this is good coming from you. So what do we all do? We go to Reedman's. Yep, that's what we did. Anyway, so we end up on Folsom Street, overlooking the nice big Golden Gate Bridge. And all of a sudden, a young guy comes out. He looks at me and he goes, Canada, you got 7 minutes. You know, my Newfoundland friends, like, I just want to take that headset and ram it up his beep. So all of a sudden, I said, Carm, I got this. So I get up to walk down the hallway, and the goddamn Reedman hems of my pants fell out. This is a true story. We're in San Francisco. They don't even know what a Newfoundlander is. All of a sudden, Carm goes, holy Jesus Christ, Mandy, bye, oh my God, they're both out, they're both out, they're both out. So she runs into an office, grabs a stapler, and starts stapling up my pants. Do you have any out of those stories you want to tell? Because I think, if you don't mind me saying, what happened after that was the most amazing thing, because that 7 minutes turned into an hour. I walked out of there with a $5 million contract, and the big cheese invited me to his house that night for dinner, me in my stapled pants. And he says, I don't know who the hell you are or where the hell you come from, but you need to meet my wife and my kids.
Well, this is definitely not going to top that story.
Jesus.
But let's go back in
Boys,
time.
how do you wear these ties? Holy shit. I mean, I ain't got a hope of hell in being feminine, but by the love of God, I mean, oh, God. Yeah.
So let's go back to 10-year-old Mandy Rennehan.
Yeah.
What drives a 10-year-old to want to start her own business? What drives a teenager to start a log cabin business? And where did you come up with just the capital to get started? How did you do these things?
Well, I think that what was interesting about down home is that I always got the inside on what the lobster fishermen were putting in their pots. And coming from a place that relied on seasonal fishing, you can imagine we never had money. Watching my parents fight day in and day out, when were we going to get more groceries? When were we going to be able to pay the bills? And I knew from a young age I was different. I just didn't know what that meant. And so I heard my dad talking about a fish called a kayak, and that the lobsters were liking them. And so they used to swim upstream. And so I used to grab the guys on the street, And I'd say, listen, here's the deal. I'm better at sports than you. You know it, I know it, you know it. So I was like, here's the deal. We're going to sneak out in the middle of the night when they're swimming upstream, and we're going to dip these, and I'm going to put them on the back of my old man's truck. I'm going to cut you in 10%, 15% with a good attitude. It's true, too. And what was interesting is that my dad would look at me and go, dear, you tell them fellers on the street they're doing a good job. And I said, I certainly will, my dear. Until the big night came, and he's probably going to cry when I tell the story. But the big night came when all the fish came, and this little bear wasn't prepared. And right at that moment, he didn't know that I was the person putting fish on the back of his truck. And he was known to fly in a rage because he had 3 kids and he was trying to put food on the table. And right at that moment, I had to make the decision. Was I going to go get him and my brothers, or was I absolutely going to get my ass kicked? Whew. I went and got my old guy. And he stared at me the same way he's staring at me right now. He didn't get mad. Now I just buy him a new truck every 3 years, so he forgives me. But what was interesting is motivating, how I learned how to motivate people even back then. I knew I was different, and when you watch people you love fight over money, it was like, what can I do to help? You know, what is it? And then I was always fascinated with structure, and I really didn't know why. There's a program, and there's probably people in this room that know about it or are part of it, is the 4-H program. And it's so undervalued, so underrated on the East Coast, in Canada. I'm a huge proponent of it. And, you know, it's not about giving cows haircuts and you know, making crafts. It's about discipline. And it's really understanding, you know, how you're able to take the potential you have and roll it out into something else. And so these same guys that I cut money in used to show up, and we used to build log cabins in the woods. Now I can tell you I wouldn't probably spend a weekend in one of them. But it was about the fact that I knew that that's what I loved. And I didn't have time to go to school. I didn't even go to my own high school graduation. What's amazing about when you look at what I'm doing and the awards that I'm winning is that I have a high school education. And I can tell you what, you put me next to anybody and I'm going to kick their ass. Intellectually, verbally, and on any strategy. And it's because I did it on my own. I had no help. I mean, I tell young people all the day that are lazier than a shithouse rat. I'm like, you don't even know what serotonin feels like, my friend. I said, I got more scars. I said, Time magazine couldn't even put me on the cover. But they've all healed back beautifully. And that's the perseverance of what I learned from my father. I watched him. They'd knock him down, he'd get back up. They'd knock him down, he'd get back up. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, he bitched like an old cradle, but I mean, he always got back up. And I think that that's today, is that everybody today, the young people, and it's not just the young people, I want to be very clear. The millennials are a very special group of people today. And when you see the ones that were raised right, I mean, I just want to kiss their heads off. Because not only are they more of the secular society, they aren't myopic. They want answers. They want to see things. They're not going to just listen to what you're going to tell them. They want proof. And so they really are curving out a different part of our society that was always really led by more of a dynasty, so to speak. You know, Mandy Rennehan didn't come from a last name that you automatically just get elected. You know, I did the keynote for the Trudeau government in January. Holy love of shit, Sherbrooke didn't know what hit it, neither did he. I put him in a goddamn headlock. That's a true story. And I said, son, I want to tell you this. I never liked you from the start because you're a spoiled bitch. And he looked at me and smiled with those pearly whites. And I said, but I will tell you this. You've had your head kicked in for the last 3 years, and your nuts have dropped. And for that, I will give you my nod. This is all true story, people.
I'm not even
If
sure.
you can't be authentic, you need to go home.
It's interesting you say that, actually, because I was looking for a segue into the next question, and you just gave it to me. So it's about the idea of, and I'll just give you a little heads up. So we've got about 5-6 minutes left, and I got at least 3 questions I want to ask. But this one, so I'll get this one in. The whole idea of brand versus authenticity.
Yep.
And you are known as a very outspoken and plain-spoken person.
It's called Respectfully Uncensored.
Is this your brand, or is this Mandy Rennehan authenticity?
It's a combination of both. I think that, I would never hurt anybody's feelings to save my life because I was raised right. We might have been poor, but I was raised right. I know the difference. And what I'm seeing more than anything is that you are seeing companies out there roll up some nice bottom lines, but people aren't staying. They don't want to be there because the company's not relatable to them, to their brand. I mean, if you were to look up Freshco tomorrow, it would say the fun company, and they'd be like, I thought you were a maintenance and construction company. It's like, yeah, we're that second. So building a unique, diversified brand around your personality is sustainable. And that's what I've seen going forward, because there's too many people today that are way too afraid to be themselves, and it's hurting them. It's hurting them on many, many levels. I sleep at night. I didn't know if you know that. Yes, I do.
Question. You come from a rural area. There is a school of thought that thinks there should be more urbanization, that we would save money, it would be easier to, afford and implement infrastructure if we were all centered in urban areas. I understand that you have a slightly different take on the importance of rural areas and what we should be doing in those areas. Don't give me that look.
Urbanization is easy. Forgetting about the rural areas that once really were the pillars of our provinces, to forget about them is easy. And I'm looking at that table back there, and I want to tell you, you want to see the stuff, the Porsches that them people are pumping out in a rural part of Yarmouth. And I put it there for a reason. And I think that the whole idea is that when you look at urbanization, the rural communities are who are their bread and butter. The people that live in these cities pay the bills, but they are not your bottom line. And so I've often had a saying, and it's worked for me my whole life, that if you look after the edges, the middle will look after itself. But what I will add to that too is that because of the decline in population in rural areas, we still have to look at the bottom line, and we still have to look at collaborating different resources. It's so important. We can't have 3 hospitals in one area. The maintenance on that is massive. And everybody has to give a little. The people in the rural areas have to give a little, and in the urban areas, they also do too. And if you were to look at every time a person from a rural community comes in to support an urban center, do you get in your car and drive out and support them? No. I think it's very important that we understand the importance of a two-way street and the history and really truly what rural areas bring to the economic table. We just really have to sit down, and they just need to be reevaluated on how we can bring in new people, new enterprise, new capital, and get it going. And the second thing is that we can never, ever put a whale on a billboard ever in Nova Scotia again.
So explain that. What do you mean by why can't we put whales on billboards?
The Atlantic Business did a big think, and of course they invited me down a couple years ago. and I'm sitting on the highway and all that lovely traffic watching people honk at each other in Toronto. It's such a lovely thing. And while I'm putting my clicker on to want to drive my headlight up some guy's arse, I look up and I see a big, massive, expensive billboard. And it had a whale on it. In Nova Scotia. It had a whale on it. A whale!
What's wrong with the whale? What should they have
A
on the
lot of people have whales. The point is that as a whole, Canadians are polite and don't ask for what they want. East Coasters, oh man, are we bad. Until now. And my point is that I was sitting in Ottawa last week with a couple people that people in this room would know, and he looked and he said, Mandy, what would you put on that billboard? I would have put, holy bleep, novascotia.com. Because while I was stuck in that lineup, it would have made me look at that website. Because we have more than whales in Nova Scotia. We have land. We have resources. We have incredible people. We have a story that nobody even knows we have to tell. Why? Because we're just not standing up. When you are watching politics, it's, oh, poor Alberta, oh, BC, poor Ontario losing 2,400 jobs. And I'm like, hey, do you remember Newfoundland? They lost a whole goddamn fishery, and it barely made the CBC. It's an issue. I am a proponent of the East Coast and bringing prosperity here. I am the cheerleader out there every day in the U.S. looking and saying, just come to the East Coast. Come to the East Coast.
I have a lot more questions, but I only have time for one more.
Okay.
So you have a number of nicknames. You are trademarked the Blue Collar CEO. I get why they call you the Wood Whisperer. It's so appropriate. Why do they call you Bear?
Look at me, for Christ's sakes.
Mandy Rennehan, ladies and gentlemen.